Anyway, moving on. The next book I read, which is another novella, which is called Seducing Cinderella by Gina Maxwell. Okay, so this book is about Lucy, who is a physical therapy doctor, and she ends up getting a new patient named Reid, who turns out to be her best friend, her brother's best friend while they were growing up. And he is a mixed martial artist, and he injured his shoulder really badly, and he is preparing for this fight where he's going to try and get his title back, and he basically has like a month to sort of get back into condition. And so he makes this deal with her to sort of be his own, he would be her only patient for the next month, and he would give her lessons on how to seduce this guy that she works with, that she's got a thing for. And so she moves into he moves into her house. And yeah, as silly and as far-fetched as the premise may be, I absolutely freaking loved this book. I was so surprised. It was another one of those things where I kind of just was looking for something quick and easy to read on Amazon, and I loved everything about it. It was sweet, it was sexy, it was so incredibly well done. The characters felt real. Like I said, the premise might sound really ridiculous, and it's been done many times before, but I think she did it in a really, really great way. And what can I say? I loved the characters. They were perfect apart, and they were perfect together. And then I loved the ending, because it was the perfect sort of happy ever after for these two characters. So it was great. I gave it 5 stars, and it's probably going to be in one of my best books of 2012. The next book I read was The Mighty Storm by Samantha Toole. Alright, this book really irked me for many reasons, and I'm actually really surprised that I read it, because it was like 400 pages of pure torture for me. It's another book that was recommended to me by many, many, many people. I really need to just start staying away from books that a lot of people recommend to me, because invariably I don't like them. I don't know what it is, but yeah. Okay, so this book is about a girl who is a journalist. She lives in England, and she gets sort of the assignment of a lifetime being able to interview this sort of rock and roll god. It turns out that she grew up with this guy, and he was her best friend. He was her next door neighbor, and he was her best friend until he was 14 and he moved to America with his family. And she never sort of got over him moving away, and she goes to do this interview. She doesn't expect him to remember her. Of course, he remembers her. And Jake, I think his name is Jake. Yeah, Jake the rock god. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so he does remember her, and before she knows it, she is told by her boss at the magazine that he wants her to go out on tour with him to be his biographer. And yeah, she doesn't want to, but she kind of does, but she doesn't really want to. And she's dating another guy, and he's kind of boring and very jealous, and you know, when she's with him, she's saying how much she cares about him and that he's great, but when she's around rock god, who might be named Jake, she kind of forgets about her loser boyfriend. And yeah, they go out on tour, and there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of whining on the female character's part, and I just did not like this book at all. But it was kind of like a train wreck where I just couldn't look away even though I wanted to stop, and before I knew it, I had read this 400-page book that I really did not like at all. Yeah, so I didn't like it. I think I gave it either 1 or 2 stars. Probably only 1. Yeah, okay. The next book I read was 600 Hours of Edward by Craig Lancaster. This book is about, funny enough, a character named Edward, who is 39 years old, and he has OCD and Asperger's syndrome. He lives alone in this house that is paid for by his father, who he's very sort of estranged from. And he has a very, very strict schedule. He goes to see his therapist, and his therapist tells him he needs to write stuff down. So this book is sort of told in the manner of his journal. And when he wakes up in the morning, he writes down the time that he wakes up, writes down the weather forecast. He eats the same things every day. he does the same things every day. Every night at 10 o'clock on the dot, he watches one episode of Dragnet. He's obsessed with the show Dragnet, but only the last season. So he watches one episode every night, and he goes to bed every night by 12 o'clock. And this book sort of details everything that happens over the course of these 25 days. And this woman, moves across the street, and she has a 9-year-old son. And when they move in, his schedule is sort of thrown into turmoil. And this book tells you all of the ways that his life changes over the course of these 25 days. You guys, I loved this book. It was one of those things where it came up as a you might like on Amazon, and I decided to give it a try. And it is seriously one of the best books that I've ever read. Edward is definitely one of the most memorable characters that I've ever come across, and I absolutely loved his character. Seriously, you guys, buy this book, read this book. It is phenomenal. There were several times when I sat there and I was laughing my ass off, and then 5 minutes later I would read something else and I would almost start crying. And I was so incredibly sad at the end of the book. Not that it had a sad ending, because it didn't, just that the book was over. But I have to say I'm extremely happy that he's writing a second book about Edward. It's called Edward Adrift, and it comes out in April, and I already have it pre-ordered, so if that tells you anything, right? If you never listen to me again, get 600 Hours of Edward by Craig Lancaster, because it is so incredible. Okay, so the last book I wanted to talk about is called Devoured by Emily Snow. Anyway, this book is about a girl named Sienna who works in like a wardrobe department, and she gets a phone call one day from her brother telling her that their grandmother who raised them is getting ready to lose her house. It's being foreclosed on, and she flies back home, goes to the courthouse for this hearing, and finds out that the person who's buying the house out from under her grandmother is this guy she hooked up with, who happens to be a rock superstar named Lucas. And she's, of course, incredibly pissed off about the whole situation, and it turns out that Lucas is obsessed with her because she was the only woman who ever said no to him. And he doesn't take kindly to that. Yes. And so he comes up with this plan. She will be his personal assistant for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, if she follows his every whim, if she follows his every order, he will hand over the deed to her grandmother's house at the end of these 10 days. And she very reluctantly agrees to do this. Yeah, okay, so this book was a lot shorter than I imagined it would be. It's probably somewhere around 200 pages. And to me, I felt like this was about 75% build-up, and the last 25% sort of didn't really live up to my expectations. Yeah, considering it was such a short book, they spent a lot of time building up to these 10 days that she was going to be working for Lucas. To the point where it kind of felt like those 10 days were very, 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 very rushed. Yeah. Also, there were a couple of weird aspects, like Lucas's main personal assistant that goes on vacation is his sister, but she seems to know way more about his sex life than a sister really should about a brother. Kind of creeped me out a little bit, not gonna lie. Yeah, so even though I had a few little minor problems with it, I actually really enjoyed the book and loved the ending. I thought the ending more than made up for all of the problems that I had with the book. It was probably one of the coolest, sweetest, most perfect endings to a book that wasn't either a standalone or the final book in a series. Yeah, I actually would have been fine with it being a standalone, but it's actually there's going to be another book at least. But yeah, I loved the ending. It's probably one of my favorite endings that I've had all year so far. So yeah, I'll whip out my new Kindle, my Kindle Paperwhite, and you guys, I don't understand all of the bad press this Kindle is getting. There's a lot of negative reviews on Amazon, which I don't understand because people are being extremely nitpicky about this. because I love it. But anyway, as of right now, I am reading Death Wish by Rob Thurman. You can't really see it on there, but it's book 5, either book 5 or 4. I am so not prepared for this video. This is what I get for just deciding, like, off the top of my head, you know what, I really want to make a video. Yeah, I need to put more thought and preparation into doing these videos in the future. But anyway, I'm reading Death Wish by Rob Thurman, which is the Cal Leandros series. It's my favorite urban fantasy series, and it's been a very long time since I read one of her books. I actually think I already read this book, but I started reading it last night, and I'm about, let's see, I'm 20% in, and yeah, I don't remember much of anything about it, so I'm just going to read it again. Sorry for babbling so much, you guys. If I do end up making this into 2 videos and you sit through both of them, I love you. You guys are the best. I can't believe I have almost 200 subscribers. I don't know how that happened, but I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching my videos, putting up with my nonsense and my babble. You guys are the greatest, and as always, leave me some love, leave me some comments. And by the way, I have not forgotten about my Q&A video. I just have to get off my ass and make it, but I'm starting vacation at the end of next week, so yeah, I will definitely have it done and posted very soon. And until next time, you guys, I'll talk to you later, and happy reading.